Welcome back. Thankfully, this week we are not the worst show on YouTube here at No Hedge. As always, I'm your host, Collin. With me is my co-host, Bog. And the two of us had a slightly different week last week for the week 6 slate, I believe. We're moving on to week 7 here. I really needed a bounce back week last week after going down 4 units. And unfortunately, a couple of games did not go my way this week, which kind of held me back. But at the end of the day, I ended up finishing 500 last week, coming in at 2-2. But unfortunately, because one of those losers was a 2-unit bet, that actually puts me down 1 unit on the week, which sucks. But again, 1 unit's really not too much to lose any sleep over. So that's all right. We'll take it on the chin, keep on moving. But for you, Bog, you had an absolutely killer week. You came in at 3-1, up 3 units because one of your 2-unit bets hit last week. So that was absolutely big for you. And on the season, that gets Bog to 14-12 and absolutely killing it so far on the season, up 6 units, even though your actual record is so close to 500. Because of your unit fluctuation and your ability to pick out your confidence plays on a week-to-week basis, you're looking pretty good, up 6 units. So Bog, tell me this, coming into this week, how are you feeling here? Because you got me by a decent margin on the units.
Yeah, no, I mean, we had a great bounce back week. At least, terrible week last week, so we needed to bounce back. We wanted to pick more safer teams this week, so I felt like, I went 3-1 on the week, but Lions were a big 2-unit play that really helped me out. I thought the 49ers should have covered too, but that was a crazy game. I mean, PJ Walker, coming in, props to him. So, it could have been 4-1 on the week, 4-0 on the week, but ended up being 3-1. So either way, solid week. Let's move on to the next week.
Yes, sir. And as always, we'll start with a quick recap of all our picks from last week's slate. Obviously, as Bog just mentioned, Niners really killed us. A couple of injuries popped up in that game, and that Browns defense came up ready to play. So that was a tough loss on our joint pick there. Fortunately, the Commanders, despite looking like the worst team at times last week, getting outscored in pretty much every margin, but one of your big points from last week was fade Desmond Ridder, take Sam Howell in that spot, and Howell ended up being the better of the 2 quarterbacks, much more disciplined. You got the win there with the Commanders. Fortunately for me, I did have a bounce back from that Niners pick with the Texans against the Saints. The Texans gave them a chance to come back at the end of that game, but fortunately we're able to hold on, so that was a big winner for me. And despite the Dolphins starting off a little bit shaky last week, the Panthers started off red hot. That offense just couldn't be tamed by that Panthers defense. They surged back quick, so that was big for you, getting the win there with the Dolphins. And then another no sweat for me, thankfully, because I need them. The Rams -6 against the Cardinals. Even though that game was really close at half, the Rams, their offensive firepower and that defensive dominance ended up really coming alive in the second half. So that was a good winner for me there. And then another one of your winners was the Lions -3 against the Bucks. That was your 2-unit winner of the week, which was huge because even though it was a little bit close, just like I mentioned with that Rams game in the first half, the Lions really pulled away there, gave you a no-sweat winner as well. And unfortunately, my 2-unit loser of last week was on the Philadelphia Eagles at -6 against the Jets. And unfortunately, the turnover bug, like it got Desmond Ridder, got Jalen Hurts this weekend because even though, again, the Eagles were the much better team in that matchup, constantly handing over the football is never going to bode well for you when it comes to the end of the game when the clock hits double zeros. So that was a tough 2-unit loss for me there. But like we said, Bog, you had a really good week. All things considered, my week really wasn't too bad, only being down 1 unit and going 500 on the week. So we're ready to keep moving. Like we said, we are going to bounce back from a horrendous week 6. And fortunately, that's exactly what happened. Sorry, week 5 for week 6. And now moving on to week 7, we're feeling good here. So without further ado, let's jump into our first joint pick of the week 7 slate. That's going to be in the 1 o'clock time here. We got the Detroit Lions going on the road into Baltimore to play the Ravens. This game opened up at +3 and is still sitting at that figure in the Lions' favor. And right now the Sharps are taking a little bit of a bite on the Lions in this spot. They're getting 48% of the bets and 61% of the money. So Bog, start us off for the joint pick. Why do we like the Lions at +3 in this spot?
Yeah, again, pretty simple. I mean, this is a good matchup. 4-2 Ravens playing the 5-1 Lions. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I think the Lions are a better team. I mean, after all these years, the Lions are a better team than the Ravens, in my opinion. I'd rather take Jared Goff over Lamar right now. Lamar doesn't look like he's settled in himself and in the passing game, and Jared Goff is phenomenal throwing the ball right now. Lions are physical up front. If they can get pressure on Lamar, maybe cause them to do some turnovers. I know the game is in Baltimore, so that is a tough place to play, but getting the Lions at +3, I think, is a steal in this situation.
Yeah, and hey, I mean, the Colts won in Baltimore, so them being at home, that's definitely a factor. But for everything you just said, Lions are just the better team. I'm really not going to waste too much time breaking this one down. The Lions defense is playing a much higher level than the Ravens right now, even though they're, middle of the pack unit. And then, like you said, Lamar really just doesn't look settled as a passer this year. This is a run-heavy Baltimore offense, and they are going up against the best run defense in the league right now. I think it's something crazy where the Lions, for their 4th consecutive game, have not given up more than 100 yards on the ground. So, like I said, no reason to really talk this one up too much. Take the Lions at +3 here. They're the better team. So why are we not going to take them with the chance of, in the event they lose by a field goal, we're still pushing on the bet. So we're going to take the better team in this spot, Lions +3. We don't think that's really one to sweat over. And moving on to another one of the 1 o'clock games. Bog, this is one of your solo picks on the week. And although we've stayed away from the wall of shame for a little while now, we finally see a little bit of reason to dabble back in the devil's well here. You're going to be going into the Giants on this game, Bog. This is Washington Commanders on the road going to MetLife. Like I said, to play the G-Men. This game opened up at +2.5 in the Commanders' favor and has since swung all the way over 0. Now the Commanders are laying 2 points in this spot. And despite that line movement, Giants are getting a lot of sharp money right now to back up your bet, Bog. They're getting 54% of the bets and 78% of the money. So tell us why you're siding with the Sharps in this spot and why you're backing our boys, even though the record says stay the hell away from this team.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I think the Giants just been playing really good defensive football right now. Their offense just can't get things done. I mean, I'm looking at this game. We saw the Bills beat the Commanders 37-3. I mean, they dismantled them. Giants defense held the Bills to 0 points at half. They shut them out at half. The Bills scored 14. Probably could have scored less if the Giants had a competent offense. So I think there's going to be a lot of emphasis on the Giants to get their offense rolling, score points, put touchdowns on the board, not field goals. So I do think the Giants have a better defense. I think they have more urgency to win here. And historically, they beat up on the Commanders each time they play. So I know we're Giants fans, so in the comment section, you think the Commanders are better. Tell me straight up. Tell me I'm an idiot. I mean, I just like the Giants +2 here. I really do.
You know what? For once, I really don't see anything wrong with backing the Giants in this spot. This is a division game, as we've seen with the NFL this year. Division games shake out to be very strange. And even though the Giants offense really hasn't been operating at that high of a level, like you said, we are playing really strong defensive football right now. So in a division spot, maybe they can keep this close, and hopefully Tyrod is able to wake up this offense after going up against, even though it was an injury-battered Bills defense, that still is a good NFL defense. So with what you saw last week, I could definitely see why you're backing the Giants at home in that spot. Even though, like we've said, the wall of shame has been historically bad this year. But let's hope that trend changes this week. And moving on to one of my solo picks here, we have got the Pittsburgh Steelers going on the road into LA to play the Rams. This is the first game that we're betting on the 4 o'clock slate here. And the Steelers, for some reason, opened up at -2. And since, I think this makes a lot of sense. I don't know why they were ever favored in this spot to begin with, but fortunately, the line has swung to the more logical side here. So the Rams are now the ones laying the 3 points, and based on the sharp money, it backs up everything I just said. The Rams are getting 50% of the bets and 79% of the money. And going back to the Lions pick, this is another one of those spots where, look, yeah, the Steelers have a good defense, but their offense is abysmal. And if it wasn't for these division games where Mike Tomlin specifically knows how to play his opponents, especially with what we saw with that shocking win against the Ravens, he knows how to play hardball. He knows how to play Lamar. So I'm not going to let that game really sway me in this position. I think that this Rams defense easily goes toe-to-toe with the Pittsburgh defense. So then it just comes down to the offensive matchup. And I think that this high-powered Rams offense is going to run circles around Kenny Pickett and company this week. So I'm going to take the Rams at home -3 in this spot. And Bog, what do you think about my pick in this situation?
Yeah, that's not a bad pick. I just I hate picking a team that's coming off a bye. I mean, the Steelers, they know they had offensive trouble. Their defense is stout. Maybe they had some time to sit back and reflect on their offense. So who knows how they're going to come out. That's my only hesitation with this game, but Rams at -3. I mean, it's at home. I really don't see any problems with this pick. I just hate picking teams off bye weeks. That's it.
Hey, understandable. And like we see every week in this league, the NFL is weird, so I understand why you're staying away, but I'm backing the Rams confidently in that spot. And moving on to one of your solo picks from the 4 o'clock slate here, Bog, we have got the Green Bay Packers going on the road into the Mile High City to play the Broncos. This game opened up at plus 3.5 in the Packers' favor and has since quickly shifted to -1. I guess given with what everybody's seen with the Broncos this year, they don't really like that line with the Broncos being favored at home. But the Sharps would have to disagree in this spot. The Broncos are getting 44% of the bets and 71% of the money. And the Sharps aren't the only ones that like the Broncos here. Bog, tell us why you're backing the 1-win Broncos at home in this position.
I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I'm going with Russell Wilson, Sean Payton here. It's in Mile High. The Broncos just played a pretty close game with the Chiefs. Maybe that can stir some things up for them. I think, the defense with the Broncos is the real problem. I think their offense is pretty underrated. They can move the ball. Packers, rookie QB, they're struggling a little bit, so this could go either way, but I'm leaning with the Broncos, money line against the Packers this week.
You know what? Nothing wrong with that, because I'll tell you what, one thing you got to look out for transitioning from the early portion of the season through the first 6 weeks to where we're at now. Once we start going into the middle section of the NFL schedule, you'll start to see some teams that struggled early on start to round it out. They've had a lot of games where they got punched in the mouth. They're starting to figure their shit to, get their shit together, figure themselves out. So I think, the Broncos at home against this Packers team with what we saw from Jordan Love last week against the Raiders. Well, not last week, 2 weeks before, since the Packers are coming off a bye. Even though they're coming off a bye in this spot, from what we saw against them in that Raiders game, Jordan Love, he was making plenty of mistakes here and there, and that is what puts your team in a position to lose games. So I can see why you're backing the Broncos here, despite the fact that they have really not given us too many signs of why you'd want to trust them this year. But again, it's the NFL. It's crazy. So I don't mind the pick with you taking the Broncos money line in that spot. And moving on to our first primetime pick of the week, we have got the Miami Dolphins going on the road into Philadelphia to play the Eagles. This game opened up at -4 for the Eagles and has since come down to -2. So the Sharps were seeing a little bit of early line value in that spot. But since that point, the Eagles are now getting absolutely hammered by the Sharps in this position. The Eagles are getting 49% of the bets, but 81% of the money. So a lot of the sharp bettors are liking a bounce back from the Eagles from that abysmal loss to the Jets last week. And I'm one of those people. So if you look at that game last week, the Jets were completely outnumbered on the offensive metrics. The Eagles completely controlled that game. And if it wasn't for Jalen Hurts constantly putting the ball in harm's way with 3 picks on the day, there was also a fumble by DeAndre Swift at one point. That's 4 turnovers that you're handing to the Jets, giving them good field position. That really gave the Jets ammunition to stay in that game. And obviously with that last pick being so crucial and getting them all the way back down to the Eagles 10, that game was just really wacky, a lot of luck variance in that. And coming into this matchup, yes, the Eagles secondary has struggled this year. Yes, the Dolphins offense is very high powered. They are easily the best offense in the league just based off their stats this year. But when we're comparing, head to head in this spot, this Dolphins defense stinks. They're at the bottom of the league. They are, giving up a lot of points every single week versus the Eagles, where I think that their defense, while they haven't necessarily impressed, so to say, I think that defensive line is going to be able to get a little bit of pressure onto hopefully slow down Raheem Mostert, because that man's running like a freak. And then, like I said, it just comes down to the offenses. And in this spot, I think we're going to see a repeat of what the Eagles did on the road against the Rams, but this time they're doing it at home. I think with that high-powered rushing attack and that amazing offensive line, I think that they are just going to control the clock, really suffocate the Dolphins in this position, and I think getting them at -2, I think that's too easy. So I'm taking the Eagles, bounce back, -2. Bog, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I feel like that's a good spot for Jalen Hurts to bounce back after last week. They're at home, right, playing a very porous Miami defense. However, I will say this game really could go either way, because Miami, they're probably the fastest offense in the league, and the Eagles, second level, their defense is super slow. They feel like they have no speed there. So that's going to be interesting how they try to contain Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And, definitely game of the week. I'm looking forward to that one. This one's way too risky.
Yeah, it should be a shootout, but for everything you just said, that's why I'm really praying that the Eagles are able to institute their game plan and just chew clock, get that run game going, and suffocate the Dolphins and keep the ball out of Tua's hands. So we'll see what happens in that spot. And moving on to the last game of the Week 7 slate and the last primetime game. Bog, this is your last pick of the week. This is our last joint pick of the week. We've got the San Francisco 49ers going on the road into Minnesota to play the Vikings. This game opened up at -2.5, and everybody wasted no time jumping on this line. It is cinch shot to -7 in the Niners' favor, and the sharp money really backs that up. This is one of the craziest money percentages we've seen in the last couple weeks. The Niners are getting 79% of the bets and 96% of the money. So, Bog, start us off. Why are we laying the Niners at -6.5 in the spot? Fortunately, we got that just a half point below the figure it's sitting at now. But why do we like the Niners at a touchdown here?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this game is pretty simple. Niners, I mean, they lost a close one, heartbreaker to the Browns on a missed field goal, so they're going to want to bounce back. Obviously, better offense, better defense. You know, just a playing better roster. Minnesota's playing without Justin Jefferson. That's going to be even tougher to them to do anything offensively to this 49ers defense. So this isn't a spot where I'm overthinking. I'm just taking the better team here.
Yeah, no overthinking this, and I'm not going to ramble here. The Vikings were actually outpaced offensively compared to the Chicago Bears last week in Chicago. And you're telling me that with this Niners defense being such a solid upgrade from that Vikings defense, you're telling me that the Niners aren't just going to run wild in this game? I think this is easily one of these no sweat bets of the week. Not a 2-unit play, just going to keep it simple at 1 unit. But again, this is a great bounce back spot for the Niners as well. So we're going to be laying the Niners at -6.5 in this spot. We feel really confident about that. And that's going to wrap it up for our Week 7 picks here at No Hedge. And with what we saw last week, we really had to bounce back after having an abysmal Week 5. And fortunately, that's exactly what happened, especially if you were tailing more of Bog's picks than you were mine. You're going to be up money on the week. So please, guys, tell us what picks you like, what picks you don't. Have we been winning your money this year? Did you lose money on that Week 5 slate? And did you bounce back with us last week? We really want the engagement. We want you guys to connect in the comments section to get a little football betting community going here at No Hedge. And with that being said, we will hopefully see you back here at No Hedge for Week 8 with some more winners in our pocket. As, like we said, even though I've been having a couple rough weeks here, still over 500 on the year, up units. And like we said with you, you're killing it so far. So hopefully you could keep the momentum rolling into this week. So thank you guys for watching. And like I said, we will see you next week here at No Hedge.